Imagine this, it's 1938 in a small city in Korea. The world is on the brink of global warming. Korea is under Japanese occupation and the economy is in tatters. A 28-year-old man named Lee Bang-chul starts a tiny trading company with just $25 in the capital. He has no factory, no cutting-edge technology and no wealthy backers. All he has is a name, Samsung, meaning 3 stars. A symbol for greatness, strength and eternity, and a belief that he could build something that would outlast him. He starts by selling dried fish, noodles and groceries. At first glance, it seems ordinary, even boring. But what Lee was really building was a foundation, one brick at a time. He knew that in business, before you build an empire, you must survive the storm, and storms were coming. When the Korean War erupted in 1950, the country was devastated. Business collapsed, the infrastructure was destroyed, yet Samsung adapted. Lee shifted the business into sugar refining, textiles and food processing, industries that might not have been glamorous, but they were essential. In doing so, Samsung learned its first critical lesson. Before chasing innovation, chase stability. By dominating the basics, Samsung built the cash flow, supply chains and the workforce that would later fuel its expansion into bigger industries. By the 1960s, Korea's economy was recovering and the nation was beginning to embrace industrialization. Lee Bang-chul saw where the world was heading. Manufacturing would be backbone of Asia's rise. In 1969, Samsung made its first massive leap by entering electronics, founding Samsung Electronics. But here's what's interesting. Samsung didn't start by trying to out-innovate the world. They began by partnering with Japanese companies like Sanyo to produce black and white TVs. These TVs weren't the most advanced or stylish. In fact, they were often cheaper copies of foreign models. But this was strategic. Samsung was learning about manufacturing process, technology design, supply chain logistics, all while minimizing risk. In the 1970s, Samsung continued to diversify aggressively. They entered shipbuilding, petrochemicals, constructions and insurance. This wasn't random expansion, it was part of Lee's charitable vision, creating a conglomerate where multiple business arms could support each other. If one sector stumbled, another could carry the group. It was a survival model rooted in Korea's volatile economy at that time. And as the world moved toward globalization, this multi-industry approach gave Samsung resilience that few companies could match. But the real turning point came in the early 1980s. Samsung was growing, yes, but it had a reputation problem. Their electronics was seen as cheap, low-quality alternatives to Japanese brands like Sony and Panasonic. Lee Kun-hee, Lee Bang-chul's son, who took over in 1987, knew this had to change. In 1993, he famously told his executives, "Change everything except your wife and children." This wasn't just a catchy slogan, it was a declaration of a war on mediocrity. Samsung invested billions in research and development, built state-of-the-art manufacturing plants, and focused relentlessly on quality control. They began poaching top engineers from around the world and setting up design centers in Europe, the US, and Japan. The goal was clear: transform Samsung from a follower into a leader. This strategy began paying off in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Samsung launched a sleek, high-performance products that could compete head-to-head with the best in the industry. Their mobile phone division began gaining traction and their semiconductor business exploded. In 1992, Samsung became the world's largest producer of the memory chips, a position it still holds today. By controlling both the hardware components and the finished products, Samsung secured not just revenue but also influence over the entire electronic supply chain. The 2000 marked Samsung's rise as a global consumer electronics powerhouse. The company's flat-screen TVs sets new industry standards, and by the late 2000s, they were outselling Sony worldwide. Then came the smartphone revolution. In 2009, Samsung introduced the Galaxy line, and by 2012, they had overtaken Apple as the world's largest smartphone manufacturer, a title they have battled to maintain ever since. Success never comes without challenges. Samsung has faced its share of crises, from patent wars with Apple to infamous Galaxy Note 7 battery explosion in 2016 that forced a global recall costing billions. Yet, their response to these crises reveals a core part of Samsung's DNA: rapid decision action. After the Note 7 debacle, Samsung implemented an 8-point battery safety check process, turning a disaster into a competitive advantage. Samsung's revenue model is as diversified as its product lines. The company earns billions not just from smartphones but also from semiconductors, display panels, appliances, shipbuilding, medical equipment, and even theme parks. In fact, Their semiconductor division often generates more profit than the entire mobile phone business, selling chips to tech giants, including their rivals. Yes, even Apple buys key components from Samsung. This ability to earn from both competitors and customers is a masterclass in business positioning. Today, Samsung operates more like an ecosystem than a single company. They control massive parts of their supply chain, which allows them to innovate quickly, scale efficiently, and weather global disruptions better than most. They have invested heavily in 5G, AI, and quantum dot displays, and they are betting big on the future of foldable smartphones and wearable tech. Their research labs are working on everything from advanced memory chips to futuristic medical devices. From a startup founder perspective, Samsung journeys offer several lessons. First, build stability before you build scale. Secure your base industries before you chase innovation. Second, don't fear starting as a follower. Use the time to learn, improve, and then leapfrog your competitors. Third, diversification can be strengthened if it's strategic, interconnected. And finally, crisis management isn't just about damage control, it's about turning setbacks into strengths. The story of Samsung is a story of relentless evolution. From dried fish in 1938 to dominating the global smartphone market in the 21st century, Samsung has mastered the art of reinvention. They have proven that in business, it's not about where you start, but how boldly you adapt to change. So, the next time you pick up your phone, glance at your TV, or read about the latest chip storage, remember, somewhere in that technology, Samsung fingerprints are there. And the empire that began with groceries in a small Korean city now quietly shapes the way of billions of people live, work, and If you enjoyed this deep dive into the behind the scenes business story of Samsung, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification, and follow for more in-depth breakdowns of the companies that shape our world, because the next business giant we cover might just change your way of thinking about success forever. Thank you.